Today I'm making a vegan version of Sam the Cooking Guy's HSP, which seems to be essentially the Australian version of what I would call loaded fries. It is fries with cheese, chicken, and 3 sauces. This is the first in a challenge series where I'm taking popular recipes and turning them vegan. But there will be some hurdles, something called chicken salt, which I've never had before and I'm gonna have to wing that one. But we'll get into that later. First, I tackled the chicken. Now I've covered 2 different ways to make that on my channel. Both of those recipes, the cutlets and the shredded chicken, would work great, but the closest resemblance to Sam's is the seitan cutlets. So we're gonna go with that. For this you need oil, vinegar, gluten, MSG, cannellini beans, fine sea salt, baking powder, poultry seasoning, and tofu. Just like many other seitan recipes, you blend the wet ingredients together and then make a dough by pouring it into the gluten, and then shaping and cooking. If you wanted to skip making your own and save time, just replace this with a store-bought chicken substitute. These are my 2 favorites. The Daring Chicken brand would probably work the best. Now on to the marinade. Sam's marinade was already vegan itself, and that wasn't a surprise as most of them already are, as a lot of the time meat is seasoned with herbs and spices to make it taste good. While that marinates, let's tackle the chicken salt. For this I need salt, garlic powder, paprika, white pepper, onion powder, celery seeds, turmeric, and poultry seasoning. I only found 1 recipe for making it at home, and that seemed well reviewed, and the main non-vegan ingredient that they used was powdered chicken stock. So I subbed that with poultry seasoning and tweaked some of the other ingredients based on other recipes I read that sounded interesting. Assembling this reminded me of making that sand art that you make when you're a kid in art class. I don't know if anyone else did that, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's kind of a core memory of any kid that grew up in the 90s. Next up, we need to create the creamy white sauce. For this you need salt, pepper, white vinegar, cumin, parsley, lemon juice, garlic, vegan mayo, and vegan sour cream. This sauce was actually pretty easy to make vegan. I just used Sam's recipe and just directly subbed the non-vegan versions for, well, the vegan versions. You wouldn't be surprised with how many recipes you can do this with. Vegan mayo seems to be pretty ubiquitous at this point, and my store did carry this sour cream, so if you can't find it, just replace it with equal parts mayo. And if you can't find either, there's plenty of recipes online for making your own vegan mayo. Just look it up. I suggest anything with blended cashews. Now the final step is assembling. But there are 2 more critical steps for making this vegan, and one is to coat the chicken in the vegan mayo before we grill it up. I actually learned this tip from Ethan Shablowski, who uses this technique for grilling animal-based chicken, and it is killer for getting a quick char. These are already edible, there's nothing raw in them, so the purpose of grilling is to get them hot and add a nice char. The mayo is essentially just oil, so it provides a nice quick heat transfer for a quick sear, which draws out as little moisture as possible. Now it's time to serve. But before I do, you might be like, hey, Mike, wait, you didn't cover 3 of the ingredients. You didn't cover the barbecue sauce, fries, or sriracha. And that's true, because by default, those are almost always vegan. So on top of the piping hot fries, seasoned generously with the homemade chicken salt, cover in vegan mozzarella cheese. So I thought the heat from the fries would actually melt the cheese, but it didn't, so I took out my culinary torch and just finished it that way. Now, after a rough chop of the chicken, I added it on top of my fries, and then it was time for the 3 key sauces: barbecue sauce, white sauce, and sriracha, alternating directions to make it look gram-worthy. So this is really incredible, and I feel the challenge was met as far as the look and taste. The chicken fit the dish perfectly. I mean, the sauces were perfect together. You just can't go wrong with sweet, heat, and fat. If you want to get a more in-depth guide on how to create the chicken, click the link on your screen now. I've also included my shredded chicken video, which I think would go great with this as well. These 2 really are some cornerstone recipes that I make all the time in my kitchen. And until next time, y'all, be nice to each other and keep cooking.